guys, happy Easter and welcome to the last of our devotional series looking through Holy Week. Hope you guys have been following along and that you found them helpful. Today we take a look at Sunday, the big day where everything changes. So yesterday we talked about that waiting of the Saturday, and coming into Sunday morning, you've got action starting really early in the morning before the sun has risen. And that is some women, and different. Each of the Gospels has different accounts of which women it was going to the tomb, and they're going to. You've got spices to help anoint Jesus' body for burial. This is an act of devotion, an act of love, and a sign that people haven't abandoned Jesus at this point. Not everyone. They definitely haven't given up entirely on their dreams of who Jesus could be. Even if right now it looks like his mission has ended in an abject failure. And they get there and find the tomb is opened, and there is, depending on the gospel, there is an angel there telling them that Jesus has risen. They go back and they tell the 11 disciples at this point, and Peter and John go to the tomb. And it says that the disciple Jesus loved, John says, which is John, gets to the tomb first and looks in, but doesn't go in, while Peter runs straight into the tomb and finds the grave clothes are empty. And they go away and they marvel and they wonder what on earth is going on. As you would, remember, we're looking back with hindsight. As they're experiencing this, as it's happening, this is pure confusion, perhaps fear. And they go back to the upper room, the same room probably where the Last Supper was held, inside Jerusalem. Now, Mary Magdalene, who's been a follower of Jesus for a long time, she comes to the tomb afterwards, and she is weeping. She's really upset, obviously, because this is a woman who used to be possessed by demons. Whether we see her in that sense or as someone who's mentally ill, that's a topic for another day. But she's someone who Jesus has delivered and who he has given new life to. And as she's weeping at the tomb, she hears a voice behind her saying, "Why are you crying?" And she thinks this man, turns around, sees a man and thinks he's the gardener, and says, "Oh, I'm crying because they've taken away my Lord. Do you know where they've taken his body? I will go and find him and I will take it. I will get him." And the man just says one word, and one word is enough for her to realise who she's talking to. He just says, "Mary." He speaks her name, and she realises that this is Jesus, risen from the dead. She grabs hold of him as if she doesn't want to let him go again, and he says, "You don't hold me tightly. I'm not going back. It's not time for me to go back to heaven yet, but I need you to go and tell the apostles and Peter." I've always found that and Peter really interesting. The specific news that she must tell Peter. Why? Oh, I can only imagine, because Peter is hurting. Peter, remember, on Friday, denied even knowing Jesus. He has failed the test. But Jesus wants to make sure the message gets through to him as well. And so Mary Magdalene is the first to see the risen Christ. On that same day, 2 of Jesus' disciples, not from the original 12, now 11, but others are walking on the road to Emmaus out of Jerusalem, and a man they don't recognise comes beside them on the road and asks about what's going on. They're talking about all that's gone on in Jerusalem, story of Jesus and his death, and kind of think, well, how have you not heard this? This has been everything that's been talked about the last few days. But as they walk, the stranger starts explaining to them how the Messiah had to die, and eventually they get to a halt, and they've walked about 7 miles, which is a long way. And they invite him in to spend the night with them. And he gets there and they've got a meal, and he takes bread and he breaks it open, and at the moment he breaks it, they realise that the man they saw was Jesus, and he's disappeared, and he's gone. They immediately set off back to Jerusalem to tell everyone, and they'd left after the women at the very beginning of the story had given their report that the tomb was opened, and they didn't know what to believe. But now they're going back to share the news they've seen Jesus, and by the time they get to the upper room, the 11 there have seen Jesus as well. He's appeared to them in a locked room. He's eaten some fish and some bread. He's shown that he is human. He is physical person. This isn't a spirit. This isn't a metaphor. There is no room for any other explanation within the gospel story. This is Jesus' flesh and blood. That is the testimony that's given. And from there, Jesus appears to more. The apostle, Paul, when he's writing, says that Jesus appeared to over 500, many of whom were still alive at his day. And this day, Easter Sunday, as well as being a great celebration, is the key claim that we make as Christians, that Jesus rose again. You see, there are historical sources that will tell you that Jesus lived. And there's lots of historical sources that he died, that he was put to death on a cross. And on the Sunday, no one argues that the tomb wasn't empty. Not his enemies. No one who had a stake in trying to disprove the resurrection was saying that the tomb was as it was before. It was empty. And the Gospel do tell us that the leaders of the Jews sort of spread a story that the disciples had stolen the body. Now, if you want reasons why the disciples wouldn't have stolen the body, well, how about this, that almost every one of them went to their deaths. They kept preaching this until the day they died, and not one slipped up. Conspiracy theories don't work very well in real life. People can't keep secrets. There is no way that this group of 11 men managed to keep that a secret. And each of them believed it full-heartedly to the day they died, and many of them died violent deaths. The other sort of argument thrown up against Christianity here is that Jesus was never really dead when he was put in the tomb, that he faked his death on the cross. Now, first thing, we have to remember that these people knew dead bodies. Death was all around you in the ancient world, and the wounds Jesus sustained, according to the Gospels, aren't survivable. But even if he were put in the tomb alive, which there just is no way to survive those injuries, to just on the third day to walk 7 miles is simply impossible. That is an incredibly miraculous level of healing that at that point you still have to agree in the divinity of Jesus. The emptiness of the tomb is the claim of the Christian faith. And the thing that makes Christianity unique among all other religions is that the central claim is falsifiable. It is theoretically possible to prove that Jesus didn't rise from the dead. You just need to prove that he's in the tomb. That's all, the only proof you need. There's no private revelation. There's no sort of secret meeting or one person with a direct line to God who just tells you what God has said. The claim is that Jesus wasn't in the tomb and he was alive. Not only were there eyewitnesses who would swear to it and would pay their lives to defend that truth, but not one person at the time was able to disprove it. Not one person was able to produce a body and say, here he is, he's dead. And for that reason alone, Easter is a truly happy day. And all we can say is, he is risen. Hallelujah.